Guys, welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Al Anderson, the original Wailers.
Welcome to the show. So I really love going back to the beginning. I always say the beginning charts our trajectory in life, our little habits we pick up along the way, follow us into our adulthood. I always say that, um, our little things that we pick up is kind of what makes us kind of who we are today. Um, Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your childhood. What was that like? And uh, were you always interested in music?
No, I was more interested in sports in the beginning. I did football, basketball, baseball, and track. So I was active all year with athletics. And then I got into martial arts. I had a personal teacher. A friend of mine um, told me that they were giving free instruction from a master, a grandmaster of martial arts at the YMCA. So I ended over at the YMCA adding martial arts into my sports program, and I realized that I wasn't gonna really kind of continue to smash myself for my coaches because when you're young and you're playing football and you're competing, they want you to go all out, and sometimes a lot of my friends, they got really injured throughout the years playing football, and they have permanent injuries, knee injuries, shoulder. So I didn't want that to happen to me. So I kind of like decided I would lean over towards something that I could have a long relationship with and be able to have fun and pay my bills. And that was music.
I love that. I love that. Um, you know, how does one, get into it? So like when did you start taking music seriously? Like what age were you and you were like, you know what? I want to actually do this.
Late, and I'd say 16 and a half, going on to 17. Um, I come from a musical family. My father plays bass, my mother plays piano. My uncles and aunts all played piano or guitar or some wind or violin instrument. And every Christmas and New Year's, they would get together and they would jam. And I'd be the only one in the room just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, going like, wow, I wish I could do that. But I have no idea how to even create sound from one of these things. And I started to get interested in string instruments, but I went more towards wind instruments. I used to sell Marvel Christmas cards.
Oh, very
They
cool.
they gave you Marvel would send you Christmas cards. You'd send it, when you completed your the amount that they gave you was probably about a dozen cards or so. You'd send a coupon and the money that you generated, and they would they'd give you a free instrument or a football, baseball bat or a mitt. And I chose a bugle for some strange reason. Uh, I'm looking at the bugle and I'm going like, wow, this is cool. So my coupon, I got a golden plated bugle, and I learned taps and charge and all that stuff. And it went on for a while, but it was a wind instrument. It took a lot of energy. And I needed something that where I could just not be constantly using my cardiovascular system to make sound. So my cousin started to give me his guitar. I saw his guitar around, and my uncle had a really beautiful old Gibson jazz guitar. Um, and I would pick it up and try to do something. And I saw that it was interesting. It had six strings. But it takes a lot to play guitar. You got to keep it in tune. You got to keep it intonated. And so my uncle was really good. He was a jazz player. And my
Nice.
cousin was pretty much a progressive uh, R&B player, funk player. So I basically learned from them. They kept giving me opportunity, but it was really rough on your hands because
Hmm.
of the steel strings. So I adapted to it, and then yeah, I chose the guitar, which was my actually third choice because the first group that I joined, a man owned a couple of nightclubs in New Jersey, and he told me if I learned one of the musicians, they lost a bass player, so they asked me, "Hey, do you want to play? Can you play bass?" I said, "I think I can do it," because I knew enough to learn some songs. He said, "Learn these 15 songs in a week, and then I'll give you $500 every week to play in my nightclub."
Nice.
And I was like, "Wow, I finally found something that I like, and I can pay my bills." So I started seriously diving into playing bass guitar first. And then when I started evolving as a bass player, I moved on to two more strings to the guitar. And then I had that opportunity to play guitar. And I played in a rock group and I played in a soul group. One group was called the Centaurians, and the other was Red Bread in Norway. Um, so that was my early testament to getting into playing R&B rock music and really and ending up loving guitar as time went on.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Like, it just never know, like how life works out, you saying yes to that opportunity. I always say it's, you just say yes to a lot of opportunities to, just doors open, just being open to what comes, you know, and I
Yeah,
think it
because
takes,
the real beginning was, which I left out, was when I did have an opportunity to get an instrument. It was the bugle from Marvel Comics, and then a friend of mine's mother was a piano player, and she used to teach at school. And she told me that the city and state was giving away musical instruments with free intuition and teaching. So I was like,
wow.
great. But it was, the program had been running for quite some time. And the only instruments that were left, I think, were violin and trombone. And violin seemed like it was really trying.
Mhm.
Uh, so I graduated to the trombone. But as years went by, I didn't like trombone. It was nasty, and stinky. And then it was the guitar straight through after letting the trombone go down the drain. I didn't think that I would stick to playing trombone, although I really like it, but I'd rather be a guitarist than a trombone player.
Yeah, I would think trombone is pretty, it looks intimidating. Let's put it that
Yeah, yeah.
way.
Good
Um,
work.
right. Um, So, I love asking this question, and there's no wrong answer, but the three levels of influence, money, power, and respect. And if you could choose only one of those things, which one would you choose and why?
Wow. That's You're putting a lot of bait out there for me. Um, I'd say respect because first you get respect, then you get money, and then you may have an opportunity to have some strength. So I
Mm.
would say respect only because I'd rather be respected than rejected or insulted.
Mm, I like that. It's a great answer. How do you, when it comes to this industry, and just, I always say, especially being in the music world, there's always, music. There's new music every day. There's new artists. I mean, there's just saturated. There's so much going on. Um, how do you say what makes you say yes to a project, or just, how do you keep going in it? And do you ever get those moments of like wanting to give up?
Yeah, sometimes it's like um, the songwriter or the artist has so much to do with how you're going to get in and fit in the band or be a part of the production.
Hmm.
I always looked at myself as a servant to music and God and nobody else.
Mm.
you disrespected me. I don't care how much money you were giving me or how little. If I was disrespected, um, I wouldn't have a long time working with that kind of artist. I was lucky and met like really good singer-songwriters,
Hmm.
guys like, Bob Marley, Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, and those are one of the greats of all times, I
They're,
would say.
they're really classical. They're really classic artists that really made a big impact on the musical world. So I just felt that in order for me to work with these people, I have to really love what I do. So I'm a servant to the music, but I'm not a servant to the artist. I'm not a slave to the record company and all. I kind of look at it the way Prince looks at it, where, you own yourself and you own all your creations. So that should represent you, and that should be your calling card to success or finances, let's say, because you need to eat, need to pay your bills and rent, and a lot of other things that goes along with getting money. There's a lot uh, that's attached to starving and doing and being very successful. So
Yeah,
you have to differentiate where you want to be and put it into practice.
absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. You mentioned some, I mean, amazing artists like Lauryn Hill, like who's still doing it to this day, and the great Bob Marley. Um, do you have anything like a Bob Marley like last piece of advice that you've gotten from him, or like, that how does it
He,
influence
he
the band
told me,
approach?
he told me that I spent a lot of time with him when he was in Germany going through his cancer fight, the latter part of his life. I spent the last months with him in Germany, and we talked a lot about life. We talked a lot about how to execute um, living for other people's expectations,
Mm,
like getting rid of those thoughts because when you're down to your last hours, years, and months, that's the last thing that you want on your mind. You really want to have a lot of freedom. And he basically taught me not to be an imitator. And
mm,
I was never, a lot of guys like to imitate other guys' shtick, and copy their behavior, copy their songwriting style, or just be a direct bad Elvis. You go to Vegas, there's like you see all these Elvises. Some are like 300 pounds, and they're doing their best to recreate something that was created. And I look at that as a really hard thing to do from the people that taught me a lot about being an original musician and being with real singer-songwriters who are not imitating. Influential, yes, because
Mhm,
everybody is influenced by something, but you have direct imitators. You could say something in a song or do something in a song or have some movement in your video, and then you see some other artist basically saying the same thing, same moves, same clothes, like
mhm,
just copycats. And he asked me, he said that if he wasn't able to continue touring, and if anything drastic ever happened and we had to continue making the music, would I honor what we created together and not to have anyone imitate him?
mm,
Uh, Unfortunately, we had to get a bunch of singers who we needed a singer because Bob wasn't able to continue touring and he went on his journey,
mhm.
and we had to find somebody to sing because nobody could replace him.
Mm.
We needed a singer. And a couple of guys we got, they were direct imitators on stage. You know, they were doing all of Bob's moves and
Oh,
singing.
wow.
One or two guys sounded a lot like him, you know, and I promised him that I would never do that and I would honor all the music that I made with him. So with the original Wailers featuring Al Anderson, the original Wailer, um, that's my specific duty to him, Peter, and Bunny, is to honor what they taught me, the music that I played with them, and at the same time write my own songs, produce my own music, and go about music in the way that, you know, is totally original to me, and
Mm.
not imitating them or Bob himself.
I love
So yeah, I was able to do that. I found a drummer from Ghana named Papa Nyako. I played with him for a long time throughout these years after Bob passed. And it's an African drummer, a Mexican bass player, Omar Lopez, a Puerto Rican guitar singer songwriter, Chet Samuel, who I write and perform with consistently for the last like 8, 9 years straight.
that.
And we use Ross Clamper on piano and organ, but we're going to go into the studio and finish our EP Mirror of Heaven.
Love that.
Three-time Grammy winning Stephen Stewart from Jamaica. So we're like the United Nations of reggae, let's say.
Love that. Love that.
Africa, Puerto Rico, America. We got Jamaicans, we got Mexicans. I feel comfortable with being able to create with this type of flag that we fly as the United Nations of Sound.
I love that. What can fans expect from the upcoming EP Mirror of Heaven?
Um, a very enlightening spiritual sound.
Mm.
We're not only singing in English, but in Espanol as well. I
Nice.
think at least 4 songs in Espanol, 5 or 6 songs. I'm hoping to get like 9 songs. So the majority will be in English, and the other 4 songs are 5 in English, 4 in Espanol, because those are the people between English and Latin America. These are the ones that are really embracing me on what I'm doing with, you know, the Wailers as a branding.
I
They
love it.
they gravitated to our sound, and they showed interest, and they come to our shows in Mexico, uh, Chile, Argentina, Peru, Brazil, all these really nice places that I love to be in. And all the other English speaking places like New Zealand, Australia, America, Canada, most of the English speaking areas of Europe, they've embraced our music and our sound. And it's an enlightening lyrical and rhythmical group that I work with. Like, cause we got that African drummer and he's got the swing going on, and we got the Jamaican shuffle and the Latin thing from Omar, you know, our
Nice.
Mexican bass player. He's got that mariachi thing and that cultural Cuban, Afro-Cuban sound.
Yeah.
He's down with the culture of Afro-Cuban Latin music. So we add that all in and we basically jam the catalog of Bob Marley and the Wailers. We don't play it exact. We do compilations of other artists with, like on the Three Little Birds uh, segment we did for the Sugarshack YouTube channel. We had a live acoustic 8 song performance there, and 2 songs are original, and the other 6 songs are from the catalog of Bob Marley and the Wailers. Uh,
Nice. Nice.
we did a acoustic version of Three Little Birds, which adds onto Bob's and the Wailers sound, we brought Peter and Bunny. We did Legalize It in a medley, along with Rootsman Skanking from Bunny Wailer. So
Nice.
we do Bob, Peter, and Bunny, the three iconic figures that taught me reggae music. I learned from them. And
That's amazing. Yeah, no, the Unplugged concert, the Sugarshack music channel on YouTube, that's I mean, the songs that like you said, legendary catalogs and newly recorded material from, your group, the Wailers and Al
exactly.
Anderson. And I think that was released what, January or sometime. It just was released this year,
Was released about a month ago.
a month ago. Nice,
So
nice.
it's 8 songs,
Hmm.
and two of them are original, and one of them I wrote with Chet Samuel, our singer-songwriter.
Nice.
The video that we shot in Bali, Song of the Divine from Mirror of Heaven, EP coming from the original web. We went to Bali. The setting was absolutely beauty. It's a beauty in motion. I love Bali. And I was able to talk with an abbot, the head priest of a Buddhist sect, who allowed
Mm.
us to come into his temple, meet all of his devotees and his monks. And they blessed us as we did our video with all of their congregation, all the children, the grandmothers. They, they sang blessings to us. We drank coconut water with flowers, and the head abbot blessed us straight through the whole video shoot. And he allowed us to be on his grounds, and I'll never forget it. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called Song of the Divine. We have an acoustic unplugged version of that, which is
Mm.
Sugarshack, which we want all our fans and our friends that's not familiar with the original material to go to YouTube or Al Anderson Linktree, and you can find everything we're doing there. But
That.
we did Song of the Divine unplugged from the actual Song of the Divine recording that has a video to represent the studio version. There's an unplugged version. And the second song was Empress Amiga,
Nice.
which which was written by Chet Samuel, which represented the the queen of the home and the empress that keeps the emperor in line, and she handles all the stately duties of life for her king.
I
So
love
he wrote that, and that's the second song that comes up on the reel. So it's a really we've done a couple of performances acoustically
that. Hmm.
in Espanol when we were in Spain, but we've never
Nice.
done one in America, and it was really interesting to see how people are
Like receiving it.
congratulating. Yeah, they're congratulating us and saying that, hey man, this is a vibe, and we gratefully appreciate that. We're just trying to get our music to our fan base so that they can understand it's not an imitation, because there's a lot of imitators out there doing the Bob Marley thing.
Wow. Wow. I can only imagine.
See, the problem I'm having is there's three Wailers. There's one
Mm.
guy calls himself Legendary Wailers. There's another guy calls himself The Wailers that doesn't have any right to the name.
Wow.
He just inherited it because his father was the bass player of Bob's band, and he kind of stole the branding from us.
Oh no.
There's no original members in his group. He's saying that he's a Wailers, and he never had any interaction with Bob Marley throughout his life, musically.
Yikes. Yikes.
So there's three bands, and the only group that I can recognize that have the same problem I'm having is UB40. UB40 has two groups. There's one with Ollie and his brother Robin, and I've toured with both of them.
Wow.
And I have a great time with both groups, but they're the only two ones that have the competition between each other, that they're successfully touring with three brandings with the name Wailers. Somebody's going to get hurt
Wow.
because it's
Wow.
really hard to book and be so confused that who's Al's Wailers? who's the Wailers? Is Al
Right.
in that way, or is he in
Right.
there? So we're trying to make that direct identification.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
represent, Al Anderson, the original Wailer, that writes his own music, performs his own music, and jams um, with a lot of improvisation on the Bob Marley and the Wailers catalog. So I set myself aside from that, and there's three or four tribute to Bob Marley bands, three or four of them. So there's like seven Wailers,
Holy moly.
So we're trying to make that direct identification that when you hear Al Anderson, the original Wailer, you know what I do, you know what we do, you know what
Yeah.
we sound like. And so you can go straight into the target without being confused of the other, which I call imitators.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I think that's something that this, I think a lot of people and I think a lot of artists don't realize, especially, in the music business, it's very, your name and all it actually does matter because you're right. If it's, I think I was reading some article about just how artists can get their stuff stolen or, they aren't getting their rights. So,
Intellectual property is easy
oh
to
my
steal
gosh, it's
with
crazy.
the way they're selling music. And what I don't, what I never thought that the sales of music would become an algorithm within the digital music world. Because when I was growing up, I grew up where they would put up a poster at the Fillmore East, or it was in the Village Voice, or it was in Crawdaddy magazine that, Miles Davis or BB King would be at the Fillmore East. And so it didn't have to go to a pipeline or an internet or Facebook or Instagram. It didn't have to go through TikTok or Twitter and all this nonsense. It was just a poster or it was in some Village magazine in New York. And it told you everything. If you bought the Village Voice or if you bought Crawdaddy magazine or Rolling Stone, they let you know whether Sly Stone was coming to the Garden or Jimi Hendrix was playing the Fillmore East or something. So, and then the place would be full anyway. Now artists the way the intellectual property is being controlled on the internet, you have to have mathematicians and like lawyers representing you. So you have your paperwork is together, you can prove who you are.
Yeah.
I got some notification from Facebook today that they want me to prove who I am because
Wow.
I believe there's so many groups out there calling themselves the Whalers. They want to make sure that I have the proper representation so I can go to work.
Isn't that something? It's so
It,
crazy.
we never thought because I'm an elder to you. I can see how beautiful and young you are.
Thank you.
We never had these problems. It was always about a poster that was put up or street team that went out and had flyers all over the village that, hey, this group is coming, that group is coming. So it's a whole, you have to be really intellectually involved with digital music marketing
Mm,
to project yourself to get mass appeal. And there's a lot of people that I don't, I'm not crazy about their music,
right.
but they do quite well financially and
Hmm.
they have mass appeal with touring. And
Mm,
it's all through the web.
got
Like
it.
everything from the web has made them the artist they are, and the talent that lies within is but few. But so far as the digital connection to all their fans, that's where they have excellence because there's a lot of artists out there that I don't really rate their music, but they have a lot of followers.
Mm,
They tour avidly all year, and we lost, Bob Marley, we lost Peter Tosh, we
yeah.
lost Jacob Miller, we lost Carlton Barrett, we lost 98% of the Wailers
Mm,
through health, and a couple of people were murdered. Our drummer was murdered.
wow. Wow.
Uh, they wanted to get rid of the powers within the music industry. And then when Bob passed, he didn't leave a will to
Wow.
his publishing or any of the rights. So it got really out of hand.
Yeah.
Lawyers and a lot of people that had publishing with Bob, when he passed, they laid down the hammer. They wanted whatever they could get from the estate.
Wow.
When when the band produced everything, Bob wrote 98% of the songs, but the band produced everything. So as directors of his music company, Tough Gun, everybody is entitled to percentage. But the lawyers were really corrupt. The manager was corrupt. I don't know if you saw the one. Did you see the One Love movie?
Yes. Loved it. Loved it.
What did you love about it?
I thought it was just well done as far as like, the acting wise, because I love looking at the actors, but I don't know what's 100% true, because
Story,
it's
the story,
Hollywood, right?
the story is totally Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's not how it really was.
Wow. Yeah.
Because the manager that you saw getting beat up is the person that stepped in front of 4 or 5 gunshots to save Bob's life when they tried to assassinate him.
Wow.
So, and he had a lot of people in his life that he really loved, and they left that out because I think that it was pretty much aimed at, selling the movie and not telling the
Not the truth.
100% truth. There's a lot of truth in there, but it's,
It's their truth, Hollywood's truth.
yeah, it's his story and not history.
Wow. And that's a big thing. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. I think there's a bunch of artists that passed on, like your Michael Jackson's talking about like buying catalogs back and how important that is. And Prince, I mean, you can go down the list of so many people fighting for their rights and to their catalogs because of the big conglomerates are taking, like you said, uh people's rights. And it's just it's hope. I mean, it's just sad.
It's still going on today, and it's been happening since the beginning of sound. People have been taking advantage of dancers, singer, you know, people that have, really the quintessential roadmap to success of that they created for themselves. And I talked to a lot of artists, I talked to the Rolling Stones, I talked to a lot of people, Jimi Hendrix musicians. I never met Jimi Hendrix, but I knew his drummer.
Yeah.
They, everybody, I met Randy Jackson, I met Michael Jackson, I worked with Stevie Wonder and Smokey Rob and the Motown. I come from the Motown era. And everybody has the same sad story that they weren't paying attention to the law. They were
Mm,
just being artists that
yeah.
weren't being represented by their lawyers, managers, and their accountants. And because when they tell an artist, hey, you have to have this ironclad or you're going to be in handcuffs, you got to pay your taxes, you know, just don't make the money and take the money from these artists.
Yeah.
Educate them to, hey, this will be continuum for it'll be generational wealth if you do the right thing.
Right.
And if you don't do the right thing, you will not have passed the money on to your children's children's children. Like the Bob Marley estate went through enormous amount of difficulty to be able to pass it on to the right people. And it's still not right today because
Wow.
the lawyers, the management, and the accountants they were really shaky, like crooked guys. They were crooks.
Wow. So sad. So sad.
It's a part of the music industry. You could speak to lots of people who have accumulated millions of dollars through, like we were in court with the record company and the estate in England, the biggest court. And we saw Paul McCartney there, and we know Paul, and his barrister knew our barrister, and our barrister said to him, how you doing, Paul? He says, "Oh man, I'm getting raked. You know, they're
Wow.
they're just it's a fire burning, and I'm on fire. I'm trying to put it out." So he lost his case, and he ended up giving his wife $50 million and 50 million
Wow.
pounds. And then we saw Elton John. He was in the same court we were one of the days, and our barrister knew him and said, Elton, how's it going? He says, hands down, I've won. I've won all my rights back. He said, how are you guys doing? He says, we're going through the motions. And we
Wow.
didn't do so good in court because, first of all, uh, the the reason why we went to court, and I'm going to say they went to court because I refused as an artist to sue the record company, Chris Blackwell, Universal Island, Tough Gum, Rita Marley, and family. I refused to have anything to do with it, but it had to be a class action lawsuit to make it, liable to go to court and make an explanation. So I said I wasn't going to go. And so the people on the dark side of the Wailers decided that they would make me go to court with a subpoena to fight against something that I knew wasn't going to be beneficial. And they lost. The bass player and his girlfriend and his manager, Aston Barrett, lost the court case, which caused a fire and havoc for all the rest of the band members that had nothing to do with the lawsuit because we were satisfied with the fact that the record company is going to eat first. They're going to pass it over to the lawyers to pass over to the family. And after the family eats, then we get our portion of what's left. And I was willing to wait for that. People are very hungry. They're thirsty and hungry and will do anything to take advantage of
Yeah. Artists. Yeah.
yeah, the position that they're in. They'll take advantage of it, even if they've gotten advances. Because this guy who sued the Marleys, I didn't sue them. I had nothing to do with the lawsuit, nor did I want to. The bass player for Bob sued them with his girlfriend and his manager, and he tried to get $160 million out of them.
Jeez.
It's just
It's
in
insane.
England too. You really have to have a master plan to win that type of lawsuit. So
Oh, wow.
they lost, and it caused havoc where the Wailers won't be able to pass the generational wealth over to their children like Tough Gum Company.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is so sad. So, so sad. And I just pray that it gets better. Like I hate that someone has to be an example of something, but I do pray that one day this that some type of justice comes out of this.
Oh, we just lost Angie Stone, and
Yeah,
she
I
was
know. Oh my gosh. I heard and I read all, I mean, oh my goodness.
horrible. She was taking Universal to court, and as
Um,
she was gaining grounds on, Arista Records and Universal.
yeah, I literally just watched something of hers. Um, she posted, she was talking about getting, her rights and about just something happened. And I was reading a little bit of like a few articles, and it's just crazy that, you would think that what all after all that she's done for the music industry that
The
there would
mag the magnitude, yeah.
yeah, justice or something.
No, we lost her on a highway when she was getting closer and closer to what she rightfully deserved. It's terrible. That's why you got to have all your ducks in a line.
Mm,
You have to have people. My message is to all the young artists that are coming and the artists that are there. They're prospering, they've got good connections, but they're being taken advantage of. You stop pretending that everything is all right. You have to make sure that you have a good manager or your inner circle have a love for what you're creating and what you're building. Because without the love, you want to start from a good, strong position because that's going to make it's going to make you look real. It's going to make your lyrics sound like there's a reality going on within your look. And then you got to have like a manager who really cares about you and not cares about how much money you're worth. And a good accountant that gives you the best mathematical financial advice as a broker in the business of mathematics. He's going to give you the most optimal ways to save money and build your infrastructure financially. And then a lawyer who is going to make sure that all your paperwork can't be compromised. So when you have these three or four magnetic things working for you, you'll always, everything will come together.
Mm, absolutely. Do you feel like like I think and this is going to sound kind of crazy to bring up, but the whole like, the Kendrick Lamar and the Drake beef and all these beefs in the rap industry, especially when it comes to African American culture or Black culture, you want to call it, like, just how they kind of pinned it. Like there's always some type of beef in like a hip hop beef, but it's never been like a rock star beef or any other bands. You don't really hear it like that, but it just seems like it's there's always it's only can be one that can rise to the top of the food chain, and then there's it's what I mean. It's like it seems like it's like we play into the industry like a pond, like we're these
We,
new artists that come up.
I know exactly what you're saying. The unfortunate thing about the Black musical culture, we don't love each other. We don't
Mm,
truly love each other. It is a football game. We'll break any bone to win and
wow.
be, and because I, I'm looking at the opportunities of a lifetime. What's an opportunity of like to, can you imagine if Prince and Michael Jackson went into the studio as brothers and good friends,
Mm,
started to create something, regardless of how the outcome of it would be, which would be fantastic.
oh yeah.
But because of certain cultural backgrounds, I don't know whether slavery still exists in their minds.
Mm,
With hip hop music, it's if you're not educated to understand what it stands for, you're going to jail
mm,
because the behavior and the hardest of the rappers, some of the hardest rappers, if you really listen to what they are giving the musical world lyrically, it's complicated because if I'm young, I want to go out and snatch some guy's chain. I want to
right.
rob some guy because my favorite rapper just told me, hey, that's what I did. I snatched his chain and I beat him up.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm,
if I'm going to follow that ideology, and we're one of the only cultures, we're one of the only cultures that cannot come together and peacefully love each other without a competitive base or a financial status quo that we have to reach. And the minute we get money, it's diamonds and gold, all the things that South Africa has enslaved our people for. All these guys buying all this ice and all these, you know, a seasonal gold watch when you're 75 and you've made it to, cool. You got a nice gold necklace. You got some banging earrings for your girlfriend, great. But I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, the
right.
glutton of literally not caring that the jewelry you're wearing is from South Africa. It's made by the very people that enslaved your people for hundreds and hundreds of years, and you're going to support that. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to walk around and have like three and $400,000 uh, automobiles, and you've got 8, 10 million, 20, 30 million $30 million home. I mean, who does this? There's only I can see if you're the Murdochs or BlackRock, it all makes sense. Or,
Yeah.
or the Rothschilds. That
Right.
makes sense to me. But you're somebody that hasn't come from generational wealth, and you're willing to forfeit everything because you're so proud of your success. And this is what we do. We go out and buy objects. We go out
Mm,
and perjure ourselves and we don't have true love for each other. You always see us on you always see us on Instagram or Facebook smashing each other and saying
Yeah.
derogatory words. I mean, there's a lot of cultures that you can minimize that to, where they don't do that.
Hmm.
You know, they really, a lot of Asian cultures don't go that far to. There's some people that do, but I'm talking about not the way uh, African Americans are portrayed
Right. Right. Yeah.
on camera. We're either getting
Yeah.
we're either getting killed by the cops,
Yeah.
or there, there's something really dodgy going on in the police, where they decide that they're just going to incarcerate some kid, and he gets out of hand and they kill him.
Mm.
So we need to, without the love for each other first, we'll never be able to satisfy our desires outside of just one and two having extreme wealth and being decadent enough to spend this kind of millions of dollars on self and not preserving, your family or whatever your endeavors are. It's all a show.
Yeah.
It's a show both 24/7. So, I would suggest that if you're a musician and an artist, to be very careful with the company you keep, especially if you're really talented,
Oh,
because they
yeah.
don't care. As long as you got the talent, they'll give you the money, they'll give you the drugs, they'll give you the ladies, and then they'll put you on film, and then you'll find out where you really are.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what's I mean, you performed all over the world, but I wonder what's the craziest or most unexpected thing that happened during a performance or a show.
We did about 130,000 people in Milan Arena.
Nice.
Um, and they booed a lot of groups that had big names in America, like Frank Zappa. They hit him with a group grapefruit because
No.
yeah, they
Wow.
kept they kept screaming after every song he played. They'd say Marley, Marley. It was Bob's night in Italy, and we were on tour of Europe the same time the Pope was on crusade. And we had more attendance at Milan Arena than the Pope had on his
Mhm.
crusade. And
Wow.
he made a specific announcement to Italian people that you'd rather party and become unconscious with smoke than to praise the Lord. And we saw so many people booing, like the average white band, and I love these guys. Fleetwood Mac was having a hard time because they wanted it was Bob Marley's night, and that was like hair raising because by the time we got on stage, all of Milan Arena was like a smoke mushroom. It was like a mushroom, like
Wow.
something atomic had gone off, and there was smoke coming from everywhere.
Wow.
And
That's
then
incredible.
there was when we did Prince Salman's birthday, 21st birthday in Saudi Arabia at a tennis arena, and the former king came with his son and all his family, and we played for them. And then another time we played, and there wasn't a lot of people there, but it was just the fact that this is King Salman's son,
Mm,
birthday party that we were playing at, and they treated us really well. And then it
awesome.
was in Morocco where there was a there was hundreds of thousands of people at King Mohammed the sixth birthday that we did some years ago. There was just so many people, and they fed us. It was royal, and so these are the Apollo, for 7 days, was really cool. We played for a week at the Apollo every single.
Nice.
There was a lot of things, but those three or four shows really were. Lyceum and Babylon by Bus was great, but it was really tame compared to all the activity and all the energy of Kings and you know
Wow, that's
Large,
amazing.
large attendance.
Isn't it amazing what music can do and like what rooms it can put you in?
It can really groom you and it can destroy you too. So you
That
have to,
too. There's that part.
yeah, your ego can get out of control. So you have to walk that fine line of, I'm really blessed and I'm going to give 100% of my energy to the celestial parts of what success is.
Yeah.
But instead of the dark side, people get really dark once they start making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And
Or do you think it's already there, or it just has to be, how they say, so, I think it's like, you could be a douchebag, but then you get more money, you become a bigger douchebag. It's like,
I just look at it as um, that what you just said, and some people can't control their egos because they got lucky. It's like the guy that wins $1 billion a Powerball and he has no idea of finances and he's just ignorant to the world, but now he's rich.
mm,
So if you want to respect that, which I do, because you got blessed, but then when you're acting like a complete idiot because you've never had money before and this is new to you, and now you're acting like you've always had it this way and you've got all the answers. You feel, you've filled all it's like a bottomless, it's like a big hole that you just keep throwing your gold down and it just keeps going straight through.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
no floor where you're accumulating. It just it's odd. I've seen all types of success stories, and it's just amazing how artists are blessed,
yeah,
artists are lucky, and artists are prepared to be responsible.
yeah, for sure. 100%. If the Wailers had a theme song that played every time you walk on stage, what would it be?
Get up, stand up for your rights.
Nice. Nice. I like that. What advice would you give to up and coming artists or someone trying to get in the music industry, that wants to, do what you're doing one day?
Just keep believing in the reality of the possibility that it could happen, and then be surrounded by the quintessential things that are going to protect you from being rubbed out of what you rightfully deserve.
I love that. Definitely love that. How do you stay balanced and some just getting away from social media, whatever that looks like for you. What do you do to stay balanced?
I for 3 years, I was practicing to be a Shaolin monk with Abbot Shi Yanfan from the Shaolin Temple, Los Angeles branch on Ventura Boulevard in Woodland Hills. And I had a personal connection to a high priest uh, from Steven Seagal introduced me to, who trained me mentally how to meditate, how to block bad energy, how to focus when you don't have focus whatsoever, how to get in the perspective of focus. And Shi Anfan was uh, was an abbot, the the first Italian master in the history of Shaolin Temple, which is
Oh, wow.
hundreds, thousands of hundreds of years. He's the first Italian Caucasian to
Mm.
achieve abbothood in Shaolin and allowed to teach Shaolin philosophy, Chan Buddhism, outside of Shaolin Temple in America, the first. I studied with him for 3 years. I was, um, my mind was set on associating with these kind of people and being part of the monkhood he was teaching me. I was a practicing monk. I studied Kung Fu and Qigong and
Wow.
Tai Chi Chuan from him. And he taught me how to meditate. He trained my body. He took me through a lot of tests, and I test all my strength today to Master Shi Yan Fan from Shaolin. He
Amazing.
he taught me how to be the person that I am now. I was a different being some years ago. I was kind of like a lone wolf, didn't have many friends. I come from a really smashed up family that I had to, my whole thing when I met Bob, I was on my Buddhist journey throughout the world to try to find myself. I was
Mm,
trying to find who I am without my family because they didn't know who they were. They didn't get along. They were like my family was, it was a war of the worlds. They,
mm,
uncles and aunts, they were talented. A lot of them were military, but they were really competitive to each other. And they didn't show a lot of love to the children because, being born in the 50s like I was, it was very difficult for colored people. It was very
yeah.
complicated. Mother, my mother was, I love you, Mom, but you were a gangster. My mother used to run numbers for Hoffa. My mother was Hoffa, the Teamster president, bookkeeper, and she used to run numbers with her girlfriend. She'd
Wow.
have bags, she had bags of money, bags of numbers crumped up with three numbers on them. And that was the 50s as I was growing. And then I didn't want that. I saw all the racism that was going on in the tri-state area of the East Coast. And I didn't want it anymore. So I graduated and, I ran away from home. I was Krishna studying. I've always been involved in the spiritual world, even from a very early age.
Mm,
I spent 6 to 8 months, almost a year, in a Krishna temple studying transcendental meditation from Sri Trimoy, who taught George Harrison and John McLaughlin and the Beatles. And it was all about trying to find myself and leaving my humble beginnings. So I went to England and then I traveled out through all out Europe and I met Bob Marley in England. A friend of mine was the lead guitarist of Free, an island group, because I used to work for Virgin Records first with Delroy Washington and the ISUS group, who was pre-Oswald, if you know Oswald, a super uh, band from reggae group from London area. And I played with them, with Virgin, and Richard Branson gave me a job working with them. He was really good to me. Richard was he was a fabulous guy because he was so cavalier and he was talking about cell phone watches, cell phones, telecommunication, jets, planes, and trains, all types of finances with coins. He was hip. And Chris Blackwell was just the opposite. Because when the band broke up with Delroy, who had a number one record, and I was lucky to be on that record. So people kind of started to see, hey, he's playing guitar, he's in London, he's American. Give him a shot, put him on some sessions.
right.
I happened to be at Paul Kossoff's house, who was a really good friend. I love this guy. He comes from a really wealthy, famous, wealthy family from Golders Green, and he studied guitar, acoustic guitar from a really early age, and he had a fantastic style. So I always liked him. I met him in New York, and he told me to look him up when I got over in England. And I knew Bud Parks from Maynard Ferguson's jazz group, Martin Drover, killer trumpet player. They treated me really, really good. They say, hey, come on over. There's a session for you, and we got a room for you. Put you up, you know, 75 pounds a week. That's like 10 pounds a day. So I just thought that, like, wow, I got enough money to get out of here because I don't like the way, New York and the tri-state area was. a lot of racism, the riots
Mm,
and stuff, and Puerto Ricans and blacks and Italians and Irish and Greeks. We were fighting, and in school we had like all types of race riots, and I didn't want to be a part of that because that's what I was running away from. I really wanted to get with an intellectual uh, group of people that it was culture, music, and there was some spirit involved. So I ran away to try to find that England, and England's not known for that. But I found some really spiritual people in England that it manifested that Paul Kossoff, being my good friend, he had a big guitar collection. He was the lead guitar player from Free. They were big, like number one rock band in England and in the world. They were on tour. I met him. He invited me to come over and work. Went over to play with him, became a good friend. I became one of his good friends, and vice versa. I believe in hope. He was such a wonderful, kind person because he came from a successful background, so he didn't want anything, because you got the wannabes and the people that want to take and just dissolve all of what you have. He had great energy. So Chris Blackwell from Island Records, I had just gotten a job after I left Virgin over at Island. I knew Chris. I met him in New York with Traffic
nice.
and Free. And I didn't really have a relationship with him, but I knew his secretary, Denise Mills. She was lovely.
Mm,
She was so lovely to me. She says, "Oh, Al, you're in England." And she says, "What are you doing?" I says, "Well, I'm not working with Virgin anymore." She says, "Are you looking for a job?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Maybe I can get you as a tape operator."
nice.
And a tape operator is somebody who cleans off the monitoring console for recording, keep all the weed off and the hash bits and stuff. And I poured tea, I would vacuum, so you'd learn the studio from the ground up.
I love that.
Yeah, there's something really hip about it because not only are you putting everything in place, the chairs, so when the artist comes into the Island recording studio that I worked at in Basing Street, no, actually it was Hammersmith. I always say Basing because that's where I did the Not to Dread album, and I'm coming to that.
Nice.
So I started working as a tape op in England for Chris Blackwell's Island Records, Hammersmith, near the Hammersmith Odeon, big theater. Many groups have played there. So I really liked Hammersmith too, because I was living in Chiswick. I left, you know, um, Wimbledon where I was living and moved to Chiswick. And so I was kind of close to Hammersmith. And so me and Denise used to go ice skating, and she became like my really good friend, and she got me a job, something like 150 pounds a week, being a tape op. And
Mm.
so I would clean up things, I'd pour tea. I was in sessions with Nico and Eno and Brian Eno and Jimmy Page and Elton John would be recording there. And you had Roxy Music, Free Traffic, all these reggae bands, Jimmy Cliff, Inner Circle, Third World, Dennis Brown, Bob Marley and the Wailers. So they had this because Chris is Jamaican and he's got this British soulful personality that people like him because he's really clever. And he's the type that he can see you as an artist and know where you're going to be 10 years from now, five.
It's amazing.
He has this intuition. And so a lot of people believed in him as, a CEO because he was making a lot. Grace Jones, Robbie and Sly. If you look at the Island Records catalog, they had Nas's first record.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah, Illmatic and
Wow.
Rakim and Eric B's first album was on Island Records. And so Island and Def Jam got together with Universal. Now they're massive because they're distributing all of the Marley catalog at the highest level. And so got to meet him again from the Fillmore East days when I met Steve Winwood and Paul Kossoff. So he called Paul one day. I was at Paul's house and said Bob Marley is in England with his first solo album. Would you come down and put some guitar on the Nazi Dread album that he's calling it?" And Paul said, "No, I'm not in a position to do that. I had something to drink, but I'm with this American guy. His kid's a friend of mine, and I was younger. I was 19, 20, I think." And he said, "Can he substitute for me?" And so he says, Al, he says, "I think I know him. He's a tape op. I see him in Hammersmith all the time. He's a tape op, right?" He goes, "Yeah, he works at your studio." He says, "Okay, send him down." Because I had done some sessions for Steve Winwood with John Martin, an acoustic guitarist, who's quite famous Irish acoustic guitar player who, rose to some a good level of popularity in England and Ireland.
Mhm.
So I went to the studio with my guitar. Paul played Catch a Fire and Burning for me. He said, "Do you know anything about Bob Marley and the Wailers?" I said, "Man, I have no idea what they sound like. I don't know who Bob, Peter, and Bunny is, or Farley and Wire. I don't know any of these guys." He says, "Well, this is what you're gonna possibly hear." So he played them. I only had like a few minutes before the minicab was coming to pick me up to take me to, Basing Street Studios, where I did the Nazi Dread album. And he played Catch a Fire and Burning. And then he said, "Do you know any of the island artists like Jimmy Cliff?" I said, "I know Jimmy Cliff and I know Johnny Nash because Harder They Come was a big movie, along with, I can see clearly now that Johnny Nash performed. But then I found out that Bob Marley wrote that for him. And
Wow.
his publisher didn't want Bob to sing it. So he had Johnny Nash sing Bob's song. And it was a number one around the world at that time. But Bob wrote it, and they took advantage of Bob's publishing rights. He didn't get exactly what the deal was supposed to be for him because
Yikes.
he had issues with publishing. Everybody wanted his publishing in the
I
end.
bet. I bet. It's
In the
like,
beginning, he was fighting for his rights, so he was writing fantastic stuff. So I
wow.
heard Catch a Fire Burning. I heard the guitar player Wayne Perkins and said, "Hey, I like this." So I went down to the studio. I walked right in the studio with my guitar, plugged in. I didn't meet Chris or Bob till after. I was anxious to hear what they wanted me to play on behalf of the Nazi Dread album. So I finally got in the groove. I said, "Play something for me." And I asked Bob, I said, "Bob, what do you hear?" Because he's in the control room and I'm in the studio. He said, "Hey, just play, man." I was like, "Okay." I put the headphones on and they played So Just Say, um, Talking Blues, and No Woman No Cry. And I said, can I just hear where this was going?" So when I heard Bob's music at that time, it sounded like country music, but with a lot of soul.
Beautiful.
And so I used that as a roadmap to be able to write my guitar lines for No Woman No Cry and So Just Say and
Amazing.
Talking Blues, Roadblock, Rebel
That's
Music, and all that. So
that's
that
incredible.
that was my humble beginnings meeting Bob by recording his first solo record. And
Mm.
so after the recording, when I went into the console to hear what I played, because a lot of the songs that I played, like I played No Woman No Cry twice.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be on that all night. And he said, "Oh, perfect. Move on." So
Right.
I said, "No, let me play it again." And he said, "No, man, that's good." So I said, "Let me play it one more time." So I played it twice. And of the second go around, it was perfect for me. But
Yeah.
he wanted the first one because it wasn't perfect.
Exactly. I was going to say that. I think that's what it's about. It's like I'm very much a perfectionist, but
Yeah,
there's
the
something
vibe.
about the first one that's just magic. I don't know. It's like you're in it,
Yeah.
and
Your sensors are out there.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
As long as I don't make any mistakes, it's great.
Right.
So the session went on like that. It was like, "Okay, what do you got next?"
Right.
And Fucking Blues came on, so I played acoustic guitar in there. And then I played some wah wah on Lively Up Yourself. No, sorry, that's Soul Jase I play wah wah on. And I take a lead on Lively Up Yourself that Bob really liked. So I did like 6, 7 songs straight,
Nice.
about 45 minutes, and I thought it was going to be all night.
Right.
So Bob was like, "That's enough.
Right.
Come in and let's talk." So I went in and he was like, Ray, I really dig what you're saying on guitar.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, I was playing a little bit too much jazz,
Mm.
too rocky for him. He's like, "Hey, man, what up? Blues, man." I was okay, you got it. So when I kind of felt out that what he was feeling, I gave him what he wanted. I talked to him for about a half hour, and when I first met him, I'd never seen a man like him in my life. He had this incredible personality and smile. Like he was picture perfect. You could take a picture of him on any side of his face, and it just comes out like, you know, if you see all of Bob's photographs, they're portraits. It's incredible. He really picture perfect individual. And he had all his hair. I had never seen any hair like this in my life. The dreadlock thing, it was shoulder length. There were big iron locks. And he had this aura around him. And he was about 5'6", something like this.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, I thought this guy was a lot taller behind the desk, and he stood up and I was like, and then I got to know how strong he was. And he invited me to come and live and produce music with him and join his group. And I said no at first because my son, Justin, was just born in Newcastle. And I didn't want to leave him, but I didn't have a job. The tape off thing was off and on. And I wasn't a permanent island session guitarist. There was too many other great guys like Chris Betting and Pat Thrall. They had great guys in the company that was doing a lot of their guitar work. I got lucky to be able to, because they didn't want me in the beginning to play on the Not Too Dread record. It was Paul. Paul gave me that opportunity. So I love you, Paul. God bless you. You're in heaven now. And without you, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. I've met Bob Marley and had this illustrious career. It's all about Paul Kossoff and the ability that he introduced me to Bob Marley's music. And
I
I'm
love
grateful for that. And that's how it kind of happened.
I love
I didn't see him for a week, nor did, and I was at Island doing the tape op thing. And then somebody said, "Hey, Bob and Chris want to see you in his office because Bob's here." And so Denise, the girl who was his personal secretary, head of A&R at that time, like I said, I loved her. She used to feed me. She gave me my salary.
Yeah.
She made sure I had a place. So she was like my mom.
I love that.
We used to go ice skating. We hold hands.
I
Very,
love that.
she was my
And
friend.
yeah, and that's rare to find in this business. And when
Really, really looked after me. And you're 100% right. She,
yeah.
she had heart for me. She cared about me because I met her with Chris in New York City and she remembered me. And so she says, "I remember you. You the guy who had all the weed and was smoking, smoking."
That's perfect. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, what a life, I think that's too, like you said, it's just being saying yes and just being surrounded by good people that care about you, and that's rare to find. And again, thank you so much for like sharing this, I mean, beautiful history and the journey. I think it's so beautiful to hear the ups and downs and how you figure it out, along the way. So I
Yeah.
appreciate I
It was a
appreciate it.
puzzle that I couldn't see. And then when I got most of the pieces together, I can see what this is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. This was such an interesting journey of a story. I was just here, just listening, just soaking it all in. So thank you so much for your time. Oh, really quick, where can people find you on social media to follow everything you have going on?
Al Anderson Linktree, official Al Anderson Linktree.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much again.
And
This was
you can also
lovely.
find this on Facebook.
Facebook, okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. And Instagram, I think, as well, right? Instagram, I
Instagram.
think all the places.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure we put all that in the description box below under the episode as well. Um, but it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I gratefully appreciate you having me, and it's been really nice that you've asked some really good questions
Thank you.
a journalist hasn't touched on, and thanks for having me again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time.
I'm with that. God bless.
Bye bye.